He's remembered by the public for his creepy roles and despicable characters, but as it turned out later for many colleagues, he was also an unpleasant and terrible person in real life. Over the years, his talent and hard work earned him a reputation as one of the best actors of our time, but it all came crashing down in almost an instant. And now it is difficult to understand whether Kevin Spacey is a hero or a villain, or maybe he's just an ordinary person with his traumas, flaws, positive and negative sides. To understand this, it's necessary to step away from emotions and look at his life path without judgment or admiration. What terrible events of his childhood did the actor hide all his life? Why was he so desperate to keep his personal relationships completely hidden from the public eye? And does he have a chance to return to big cinema? Today, we offer you to get acquainted with the interesting and ambiguous life of Kevin Spacey. You're on the Biographer channel. Let's get started. Kevin Spacey Fowler was born on July 26, 1959 in the town of South Orange, New Jersey, in the family of Secretary Kathleen Ann Knutson and technical writer Thomas Geoffrey Fowler. Kevin was the youngest of 3 children. Besides him, the Fowlers had an older daughter, Julie, and a middle son, Randy. When the future actor was very young, the family moved to Southern California. According to Spacey's memories, the family generally moved very often because of his father's work, where he never stayed for long. Talking about that time, Kevin recalled that he was very angry with his father because of this, because he constantly had to change homes and schools and lose friends. Moreover, he described himself as shy and withdrawn as a child. Kevin preferred to remain silent in company, which made people around him think that he was in a bad mood or depressed. In the circle of friends, he was even given the nickname Moody. At home, the boy was also unhappy. His father was constantly losing jobs and stayed at home most of the time while his mother worked and was the breadwinner of the family. The father was engaged in raising children. He did not like television, believing that it could have a bad effect on children, so they did not have a television at home. But against the background of other things, that is nothing. For many years, Kevin did not tell anything unusual or terrible about his childhood and described his father as a completely ordinary man from the middle class. But even then, there was something strange in his stories about the family. When some people think of home, they think of a place where they grew up and had all their Christmas dinners and family gatherings. I don't have that. Only many years later, after the beginning of the scandal that fell on Spacey, his brother gave an interview in which he told the true story of their family, and then Kevin confirmed the same. In an interview, Randy Fowler revealed that their father was a neo-Nazi and white supremacist. Thomas Fowler joined the American Nazi Party when Spacey and his brother were very young. Everything was very serious. Thomas kept headbands with a swastika at home and put a photo of Hitler on the mantelpiece, and at one point even grew the same mustache. Moreover, he could spend hours lecturing children about Nazi ideas. Also, according to Randy, their father had books with prohibited images of children in his home office, and one weekend he took the children to a nudist camp. Relations in the family were very cold. There was no question of family closeness and love. Kevin's brothers said that their father was very cruel and beat the children for disobedience, and sometimes they even had to starve because there was not enough food at home. In his harrowing story, Fowler recalled, "There was so much darkness in our home it was beyond belief. It was absolutely miserable." The biggest horror for Randy was an incident that happened when he was 14 years old. Then, Thomas sexually assaulted him for the first time. "He pushed my face down into the pillow. I was screaming. I heard Mom at the door and I begged for help, but she walked away. I've never felt so alone." He declined to say whether the same thing happened to his brother and sister, saying they should come forward if they wanted to, and he was prompted to reveal his story by the accusations against Kevin, which included a teenager of the same age as Randy at the time. Fowler also said that Spacey learned to emotionally shut down and distance himself from what was happening at home and to play tricks to avoid beatings. Acting may have been an escape for his younger brother. Describing Kevin as an empty vessel, he said, "Neither of us had a chance of growing up with 2 such damaged parents." He believed that it was his difficult childhood and his father's attitude that formed the basis of Kevin's future sexual harassment and led to his transformation into the same monster as their father. Testifying in court in his case several years later, Spacey confirmed much of what his brother had said about his childhood. He recalled that it was his father's fanatical lectures that made him an opponent of any intolerance. Also, due to Thomas's beliefs, little Kevin could not invite friends home because he was afraid of their reaction to his father. "My best friend was Jewish. I couldn't bring him to my house. Everything that was happening at that house was something I felt I had to keep to myself, keep private, and never ever talk about anything. In contrast, his relationship with his mother was quite different. Kevin said that it was his mother who awakened his interest in acting. Being a fan of cinema and music, she introduced her son to movie stars of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Kevin also treated his mother with tenderness, saying that for him, her laughter was the best sound he had ever heard, so he always tried to make her laugh. Randy also confirmed the warm relationship between his mother and Kevin. He said that in the mid-80s, Kathleen won almost $2 million in the lottery and invested it in Spacey's career, and Kevin treated his mother like a queen. Over time, when he became rich and famous, he bought her a luxurious house in a prestigious area of Los Angeles. She, according to Randy, turned this house into a real temple of Kevin Spacey, and at the same time, did not have a single photo of her eldest son. His mother was also present with Kevin at the Academy Awards when he won his nomination.
And on a personal note to my mother, I am so proud that you can be here tonight. Thank you so much.
A terrible home environment led Spacey to try to rebel as a teenager. At one point, he set fire to a shed in their garden, which is why his father decided to send Kevin to a military academy where the boy was supposed to learn discipline and take control. But Spacey lasted only a year there. Although he even managed to get a leadership medal there, he was soon expelled due to a fight with another student, during which he threw a car tire at his head. After that, he returned to a regular Los Angeles high school and joined the school theater there, where he began acting in plays. The first of which was a production of Arthur Miller's All My Sons. It was then that his life completely changed. It wasn't until I found theater that I found a place where I suddenly felt, wow, I can be myself here, he said about it later. Kevin recalled that he wanted to try himself on the theater stage after seeing his classmates Val Kilmer and Mare Winningham, who later became actors in a school production. That is how he got to the play All My Sons, which was based on the play of the same name by Arthur Miller. This was the performance when I realized something was happening between me and the audience that I hadn't recognized before. There was this reaction, and I walked off stage and I saw my friends on stage frozen because they didn't quite know what to do. After the performance, Chatsworth High School theater teacher Robert Corelli approached Kevin and suggested that the young man start acting in the theater. Acting helped Spacey cope with his problems, primarily with shyness. It also became a way for him to transform into someone else. By the way, it was during this period that he changed his name from Kevin Fowler to Kevin Spacey. It was his maternal grandfather's last name, and Kevin was pushed to take it by Randy, who thought it would be more suitable for a movie star name. After graduating from school, Spacey entered Los Angeles Valley College, but left it after 2 years due to lack of funds for studies. It was then in 1979 that former classmate Val Kilmer persuaded Kevin to enter the famous New York Juilliard School. There, he entered the Group 12 class where he studied drama with the famous actress and teacher Marian Seldes. During his studies, he worked as a dresser in a restaurant. At Juilliard School, Spacey recalled that the teachers treated him quite strictly, and sometimes even rudely, which was very disappointing and hurtful to him. Because of this, he even got into a fight with one of the teachers, saying that she never liked what he did, but she made Kevin understand that everything was not as he thought. "You're an idiot. Don't you realize that I'm the hardest on you because I think you're the most talented? But I also know you're the laziest." But even with talent, it was necessary to earn a living. While still living in Los Angeles, Kevin worked as a shoe salesman, auditioned for TV shows, and tried his hand at stand-up comedy. I did stand-up comedy for a number of years before I moved to New York and studied acting, and they would have talent contests in bowling alleys at midnight. Spacey recalled about those times. When you're in a bowling alley and you're doing what you think is your best material, and all you can hear is the sound of bowling pins being knocked over, it's not very encouraging. Of course, it was not easy for the young actor to find work at the beginning of his career, but still, without an agent or money, he managed to audition for the New York Shakespeare Festival, playing a cameo role in the play Henry IV, Part 1. This role became his first professional gig, but after that, he couldn't find acting work. So Spacey found an assistant job in Joe Papp's office. Papp was the founder and director of the New York Shakespeare Festival. While working in the office, Spacey continued to look for opportunities to break into the theater. Finally, he managed to get the lead role in the off-Broadway production of The Robbers. This term refers to theater venues in New York that hold less than 100 spectators. It was for this production that Kevin received his first reviews in The Village Voice, a weekly newspaper that covered the cultural life of New York. As the actor recalled, the reviews were very complimentary, in which he was compared to Karl Malden and Marlon Brando at the same time. Joe Papp showed up at the play one night and fired me the next day. I was stunned because it was paying my rent. Joe said, "I saw an actor last night on stage, and you've become too comfortable here." The actor later noted that Pap did him a huge favor by hiring him because in 4 months he started playing on Broadway. Spacey dropped out of the Juilliard School to pursue a theatrical career, and they eventually fell out with Val Kilmer. As Kilmer said during his studies, Kevin borrowed about $18,000 from his father and returned only $1,000. Spacey replied that the debt was only $800 and he returned all this amount. It's not known which of them lied in this situation, but their friendship ended after that. Spacey's theater career was going well right away. He played the main roles in Ghosts by the Norwegian playwright Henrik Ibsen, Molière's The Misanthrope, and Chekhov's The Seagull. He was also noted for playing each of the lead roles in David Rabe's production of Hurly-Burly. After several years of working in the theater in 1986, he got his first success. He played in the famous production A Long Day's Journey into Night, which was broadcast on television the following year. During the same period, he appeared in episodes of The Equalizer and Crime Story, and made his film debut with an episodic role in the film Heartburn with Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson. Originally a theater actor, Kevin always emphasized his great love for the theater, comparing it to his other favorite pastime, tennis.
But it's like tennis theater. It's like, if you went out 8 times a week and played tennis, for people who think that theater's the same, or you get bored doing it, or it's the same lines, tennis is a really good analogy because, yes, it's the same rules, but it's a different game. Every time you're out on that court, you're working on a different part of your game. Your partner's working on a different part of their game. And you add to that the act of being watched. And theater is amazing.
In 1988, Kevin played another small role in an even more famous film, Working Girl, directed by Mike Nichols, who also made the previous film in which Spacey made his film debut. Kevin's role was not significant, but the film itself was well received, grossing a large box office and receiving several Oscar and Golden Globe nominations. Famous actors such as Harrison Ford, Sigourney Weaver, and Melanie Griffith played the main roles in it. During that time, he continued to act on television, appearing in various TV series and movies and acting in films. Those roles were usually secondary, small or not very visible at all, but they helped the young Spacey gain experience and a reputation as a character actor who vividly plays minor characters. In addition to film and television, Kevin successfully played in the theater. For his role in Lost in Yonkers, he won the Tony Award for Best Actor. As the actor later recalled, only all those successes finally forced his father to admit that Kevin could build a successful acting career. I think it wasn't until my father actually came and saw me in a play on Broadway a number of years after I'd been working professionally as an actor and I remember we all went to dinner afterward, and he was like, "So this acting thing seems like it's working out." I'm like, "Yes, Dad, I think it's going to be okay. I think you can calm down." And his career was really going well. Spacey gradually, stubbornly, and persistently climbed the career ladder. His next project was the drama Glengarry Glen Ross, released in 1992. In this movie, Spacey got the opportunity to work with such famous actors as Al Pacino and Alec Baldwin. Although the film was a complete failure at the box office, it received excellent reviews from critics, and later even became a classic. Many years later, the critic Philip French called the cast of this film, which included Spacey, one of the best acting ensembles in American cinema. After that, Kevin appeared in the not-so-successful thriller Consenting Adults and also played a role in Iron Will, which was based on the true story of sled dog racing in early 20th century Canada. This film is notable for being awarded a rather rare A+ grade by CinemaScore viewers. Spacey next starred in the dark comedy The Ref, a performance in which he was highly praised by critics. For example, Peter Travers from Rolling Stone magazine noted his wonderful duet with Judy Davis. They are combustibly funny, finding nuance even in nonsense. The script is crass. The actors, never. The actor backed up the success with the next film, the satire Swimming with Sharks, in which he played Buddy Ackerman, an influential movie boss with a terrible personality. The film received good reviews from critics who especially highlighted Spacey's performance. Entertainment Weekly columnist Owen Gleiberman wrote about him as follows. The producer, as a megalomaniacal cutthroat, the devil with a cellular phone, is by now a standard figure of Hollywood satire. But Kevin Spacey takes this archetypal jerk to new levels of tyrannical bravado. But real success and recognition came to Spacey after the release of his next film, The Usual Suspects, directed by Bryan Singer. In it, Kevin played the mysterious criminal Roger Verbal Kent, also known as Kaiser Soze. The actor got into this project after meeting the director and screenwriter Christopher McQuarrie, which took place at a party after the screening of Singer's debut film Public Access at the Sundance Film Festival. Spacey was so impressed by this film that he told Singer and McQuarrie when they met that he was ready to star in any of their new projects. After that, they sent the script of The Usual Suspects to the actor without telling him exactly what role they wanted to offer him. After reading the script, Spacey was very intrigued by the role of Kent, which, as it turned out, was for a reason. Soze was written with Kevin Spacey in mind. He'd approached me at a screening and asked to work with us. He wasn't so famous back then, and we thought he'd be great, since we'd loved him in Glengarry Glen Ross. There's something sly and fun about him that's perfect for a trickster mastermind like Verbal. Kent's prototype was a real person, John List, who killed his family and then changed his personality and started a new life. Because of this story, the letter became one of the most wanted criminals in America. The director was also inspired by the film No Way Out, in which Kevin Costner's character, a U.S. Army soldier, turned out to be a spy recruited by the KGB. For Singer, the fact that Spacey was a little-known actor at the time became very important because it allowed to confuse the audience, who was supposed to perceive his character as secondary. Also, in the script, Kent looked more like a mannequin, but Spacey managed to make him more interesting by hinting that the character has a double bottom. Chris McQuarrie's script was complex and admirable, but it was confusing. I know it was confusing because there were actors who actually thought the movie was going to end differently. Gabriel Byrne thought he was Kaiser Soze. To maintain the atmosphere of mystery, Bryan Singer made all 5 main actors believe that they were playing the role of Kaiser Soze during the filming. Only Kevin Spacey knew from the beginning that his character, Verbal Kent, was actually Soze.
You think you can catch Kaiser Soze? You think a guy like that comes this close to getting caught and sticks his head out? If he comes up for anything, it'll be to get rid of me. After that, my guess is you'll never hear from him again.
This caused controversy as a result. At the first showing of the film, Gabriel Byrne was so shocked to learn that his character, Dean Keaton, was not Kaiser Soze that he stormed out of the theater and argued with Singer in the parking lot for 30 minutes. The role was a real breakthrough for Kevin because after the film release, he received a flurry of enthusiastic reviews. Critics noted that this role turned Spacey from a simple character actor into a true star. The film's coup de grace is as excellent as it is unexpected. The Independent's Quentin Curtis wrote in his review at the time, "The whole movie plays back in your mind in perfect clarity and turns out to be a completely different movie to the one you've been watching. Rather better, in fact. It was a movie that took all the rules of film noir and turned them upside down," David Cano commented in Creative Storytelling in 2015. His character also made it to various tops, including the 10th place in Time magazine's list of the most memorable movie characters. His Verbal Kent was also ranked number 48 in AFI's 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains. And of course, awards. For this role, Kevin was nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Screen Actors Guild Award and Golden Globe Awards, and also received an Oscar. The film itself was also well received by critics and grossed a good box office. With a budget of $6 million, it grossed $67 million worldwide. Moreover, the movie was expected to win the Oscar for the Best Screenplay. The high quality of the script was confirmed by Spacey, who later said in an interview that the film interested him not only because of the director and screenwriter. Because so many things that the movie said to me were beneath the surface, it's a film about the fact that if you only look at a person through one lens or only believe what you're told, you can often miss the truth that is staring you in the face. I think that film also asked me to do the kind of work that was not flamboyant, but actually very minimal, and very much about how someone's mind works. Kevin's rise continued with another very successful project because in the same year, 1995, Se7en by David Fincher was released. The cast was star-studded because in addition to Spacey, it included Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, and Gwyneth Paltrow. In the film, Kevin got the role of serial killer John Doe, which was quite problematic from the very beginning. Ned Beatty, who was Fincher's first choice, turned down the role, calling the script the most evil thing he had read in his life. Then it was offered to Val Kilmer, but he also decided to decline the offer. Michael Stipe, the vocalist of the band R.E.M., was also considered for this role, but their work schedules did not coincide. When Brad Pitt turned his attention to Spacey, it turned out that the producers were not satisfied with his salary, which they considered too high. But in the end, when Doe's scenes with an unknown actor had already been filmed, it became clear that it would be necessary to return to Spacey's candidacy, which Pitt continued to insist on. I auditioned for John Doe in Se7en and didn't get the part. They shot with another actor and then, for whatever reason, that all went south and they brought me in. I got a call on a Friday night and on Monday morning I was on a plane to Los Angeles, shooting on Tuesday. It was Kevin who insisted that his name be removed from the opening credits and not appear anywhere during the marketing activities, as this would help hide the identity of the killer from the audience. Although the management did not like it too much, Spacey still got his way because his arguments had unshakable logic. If I'm the third billed actor in a movie where the top two billings are trying to find somebody and they don't find that somebody until the last reel, then it's obvious who that somebody is, he said, later adding, "The bonus was that I was in a movie that made more than $400 million worldwide, and I didn't have to do a single interview." The actor also shared his thoughts on his character, telling why he wanted to play this rather unpleasant role. "I liked it because it was such a dangerous script and showed just what human beings are capable of. Here was a movie in which Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, who always win in every movie they ever do, simply don't win. I felt that was outrageous for a commercial move. It's been interesting for me to walk down this road. It's been wild, and in the case of Se7en, it was frightening." For Se7en, Spacey once again received rave reviews, and the film itself eventually became a true cult hit, landing on the list of the greatest films of all time compiled by some publications. Its ending is still considered one of the best in the history of cinema. Did you watch this movie? Did you like its finale, and what impression did it make on you? Or maybe you like some other Spacey movie? Tell us in the comments. We read everything. Spacey's character, John Doe, became one of the most famous serial killers in cinema, just like Anthony Hopkins' character Hannibal Lecter. Therefore, when the actors met in the studio on one famous TV show, the presenter decided to draw attention to this fact. The actors reacted quite funny to it.
Well, you were a serial killer in
Se7en.
Yes,
That's
right?
That's right.
And of course, so obviously you could compare notes.
Hi, how you doing?
After these movies, Kevin became famous as an actor who excels at playing sinister, frightening, despicable characters. As he said, it was an interesting experience for him because it allowed him to explore his own dark side. Also, such characters gave him the opportunity to play something complex and interesting from an actor's point of view. In the same year, Spacey also released the film Outbreak, directed by Wolfgang Petersen, which tells the story of an outbreak of the fictional Motaba virus in a small town in California. The picture grossed a good box office, although it was received ambiguously by critics. Because of its theme, Outbreak gained popularity again in 2020 after the start of the coronavirus pandemic. In 1996, Spacey starred in the film A Time to Kill, which was based on the novel of the same name by John Grisham. In his work, director Joel Schumacher touches on the hot topics of racial discrimination and the shortcomings of the justice system, sparking important conversations about equality. The film also explores the issue of justice and what one man will do to protect his family. Kevin's partners on the set were such stars as Sandra Bullock, Samuel L. Jackson, and Matthew McConaughey. The film received mixed reviews but grossed a good box office, which was $152 million on a budget of $40 million. Moreover, the film was nominated for an Oscar for Best Sound Editing. At the same time, the crime thriller Albino Alligator appeared on the screens, which became the directorial debut of Kevin Spacey. For the actor, this film was of great importance because he had long wanted to try himself as a director and see if he could become an interesting storyteller. Ultimately, it's better to be the storyteller rather than just an element in the story. When you act, you're like a color, and you bring that color to the director. But it's the director who's going to make the painting. As an actor, you have very little say in the editing process. Spacey was also interested in creating a picture that could surprise the audience and demonstrate something non-trivial. When the script of the film deliberately leads the viewer to the wrong conclusions, only to suddenly reveal a completely different side in the finale, as it was in The Picture of the Usual Suspects. And that's exactly the scenario he found in The Albino Alligator. The picture tells the story of three petty criminals who were cornered by the police and, in order to save themselves, took people hostage in a local bar where they hid after a failed robbery attempt. Spacey's first directorial effort turned out to be not very successful. The film did not arouse much enthusiasm among critics, whose reviews were mixed, and could not beat its small budget of $6 million at the box office. But Kevin did not pay attention to this, noting that this work was a good experience for him. I learned a great deal directing Albino Alligator. I called a lot of people, asked a lot of questions, watched a lot of movies, and read an abundance of books on editing, production design, and cinematography. It was a very good experience. The relative failure of the directorial debut was overshadowed by successful acting works. In 1997, Kevin starred in a new movie, a neo-noir crime film, LA Confidential, directed by Curtis Hanson. In it, Spacey played a detective, the glamorous and untidy police sergeant Jack Vincennes, who was more interested in personal image than the arrest's records. The story tells about the work of the Los Angeles police in the 50s and shows the dark side of Los Angeles at that time, with its gossip about Hollywood stars and police corruption. The picture was based on James Ellroy's novel of the same name, based on real events. As a prototype, the author used the scandal that became known as Bloody Christmas. This story took place on Christmas Day, 1951 in Los Angeles, when police brutally beat 7 people, causing them serious injuries. Hanson claimed that for a long time he had been searching for a story that could capture all the glamour and squalor of the modern era. When I read LA Confidential, I just got hooked on the characters, got caught up emotionally in their individual struggles with their personal demons. He said, I'd always wanted to make a movie about LA, to deal with this city at that magical moment in the 50s when the dream of LA was being bulldozed to make way for all the people who were coming here in pursuit of the very dream that was being destroyed. In addition to Spacey, such stars as Kim Basinger, Danny DeVito, and Russell Crowe, and Guy Pearce, little known at the time to American viewers, also got roles in the film. The director specifically tried to hire actors who were little known at the time. He explained it by the fact that he did not want the actors to have a positive attitude among the audience. It was important that from the beginning of the film there was an equally negative attitude towards all the characters, which would gradually change as the characters and their personal stories were revealed. The film turned out to be very successful, receiving recognition from critics and viewers. LA Confidential grossed over $126 million worldwide on a budget of $35 million. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film received a near-perfect rating of 99% based on 163 reviews. Critics also routinely praised Kevin, noting that, quote, Mr. Spacey is at his insinuating best, languid and debonair, and a much more offbeat performance than this film could have drawn from a more conventional star. And critic Roger Ebert called it seductive and beautiful, cynical and perverse, one of the best films of the year. This success was reinforced by recognition at various awards. For the Oscar alone, the film received as many as 9 nominations, winning awards for the Best Screenplay and Supporting Actress, where Kim Basinger won. Kevin Spacey, in turn, received a BAFTA nomination as the Best Actor. The picture is still called one of the best crime films ever made in Hollywood, an outstanding classic that stands comparison with the greatest works of the genre. There were even attempts to turn it into a TV series in 2003 and 2018, but neither made it past the pilot stage. Perhaps a recognition that the brilliant original couldn't be improved upon. But even then, situations that began on the set would have tragic consequences in the future. Guy Pearce, Spacey's colleague on the picture, said in an interview years later that the actor behaved inappropriately during the filming of the movie. Yeah, tough one to talk about at the moment. Amazing actor, incredible actor. Slightly difficult time with Kevin. Yeah, he said, hinting that Kevin groped him while working together on the film LA Confidential. Pearce then said, thankfully, I was 29 and not 14. But for that time, the actor was basking in the rays of fame. He had reached a high level in the film world. He was counted on, and he was invited to interesting projects. In his work, Spacey was constantly improving himself, and in working with directors, he appreciated criticism and professional challenges, receiving new tasks, constantly improving his skills, and dispelling doubts about his talent. Kevin believes that the sign of a brilliant director is not only the ability to point an actor's performance in the right direction, but also the ability to do it at the right time. He talks about it like this. I might have been playing something in a particular way in rehearsals, and then finally in the 4th preview, the director will say, you know, in that moment, I think you should do this. You're like, whoa, I've been doing it the other way for 6 weeks. But now you know more about the character, and you're finally ready for that note. The actor's next project was the detective thriller Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, directed by Clint Eastwood. The picture is based on the novel by John Burrant, who wrote his book on real events. It, like the film, tells the story of the trial of an antique stealer who killed his young lover. The role of the merchant Jim Williams was played by Kevin Spacey and John Cusack, and the young Jude Law became his partners on the set.
Billy and I had a bond. That's not something that they're ever going to understand. They'll just see the sex And the age difference?
Since the real story unfolded in the city of Savannah, Georgia, Spacey came there a few weeks before the start of filming to listen to the locals to learn the local accent. Kevin also donated $200,000 to the reconstruction of the local theater after filming in Savannah. He said that he really liked living in this city and planned to come there with a performance when the theater was restored. The film failed at the box office, failing to meet its budget. Critics did not appreciate it either, and Spacey was criticized many years later by the book's author, John Berendt, who said in an interview that the actor did not even come close to portraying Jim Williams. I had offered Spacey recordings so he could listen to Jim Williams talking to me, regaling me with stories while sitting in his living room in Mercer House. Spacey said he'd already heard Williams on tape talking during one of his trials, but when I saw the movie, I was perplexed by the way Spacey portrayed Williams because he did it as if he were asleep. He talked as if he were in a fog or sleepwalking. Berendt believed that Kevin's poor portrayal of the character was due to the fact that he listened to the tapes of Williams' speech during the session in which he took Valium. The following year, in 1998, the action film The Negotiator, directed by F. Gary Gray, was released, in which Spacey again played the lead role in a duet with Samuel L. Jackson. They play Chicago police officers who are experts in negotiating the release of hostages. The picture was well received at the box office and got good reviews from critics. Kevin's excellent performance was once again praised. Critic Mick LaSalle noted, "Kevin Spacey is the main reason to see The Negotiator. Spacey's special gift is his ability to make sanity look radiant. In The Negotiator, as in LA Confidential, he gives us a man uniquely able to accept, face, and deal with the truth." For participation in this film, the actor's fee increased to $4.5 million, and his name on the poster became a guarantee of the movie's success and good box office. In the same year, he appeared in the obscure independent film Hurly Burly and voiced Hopper the Grasshopper in the animated comedy A Bug's Life. In 1999, Spacey continued to move up the career ladder, reaching new heights. At that time, American Beauty by debutante director Sam Mendes, who previously worked in the theater, appeared on the screens. In this film, Kevin played the role of Lester Burnham, a middle-aged man living in an ordinary suburb of a big city. For Spacey, this role was another step in the gradual departure from the villainous characters that he'd mainly played before. This departure from the usual role in which both the studios and the audience wanted to continue to see him was not easy for Kevin. As the actor later admitted, everyone wanted him to continue playing villains, but he was already tired of it. People discovered me in film playing very dark, very brooding, very villainous characters. Spacey recalled, "It was a kind of examination I was having in the nature of evil. It was fantastic, but about as far removed from me and my experience as I could get. It was the fact that he, as an actor, tried to go beyond the usual image, to change and start trying new things, which brought Kevin closer to his character Lester. I read him and I understood him. The concept of being at a place in your life where you no longer wish to remain, you wish for nothing so much as to change and move in a new direction." A big role in favor of the choice of this film for Spacey was also played by the script and the director's figure, because Kevin had seen the plays of Sam Mendes many times and liked them very much. Mendes saw Spacey in the lead role from the very beginning, although the studio did not initially support the director's vision. They offered alternative options, among which were Kevin Costner, Bruce Willis, John Travolta, but in the end they still returned to Spacey's candidacy. Since Kevin's character in the film gradually transformed his appearance, the actor also worked out in the gym during filming. But the scenes were shot out of chronological order, so some of them he had to juggle with makeup, costumes, and poses to depict the character's body before his transformation. Spacey later shared his inspiration while preparing for the role of Lester.
I know, but I'll tell you, there was a very interesting thing that Sam Mendes did with me before we started shooting American Beauty. He gave me this cassette tape, back in the days of cassette tapes, of the music he wanted me to listen to that he thought Lester would listen to.
Interesting. What was on there?
Oh, it was like all kinds of really... Actually, there's some Bobby Darin on it, and then he ended up using Bobby Darin in the soundtrack. But it was really interesting. No director had ever done that. Like, here's the music your character might play in the car, you know? And so I remember driving around for a while before we started shooting and listening to that music and sort of being inspired by it.
The film was a huge success at the box office because with a minimal budget of $15 million, it grossed a staggering $356 million worldwide. It also received critical acclaim, with particular praise for the director, screenwriter, and, of course, Kevin Spacey. Sight and sound critic Kevin Jackson wrote that Spacey in this film was very different from his other roles, and the most enjoyable part of his performance was that he managed to portray both a fool and a hero. American Beauty also graced the awards season, receiving 5 statuettes out of 8 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. And Spacey became the Best Actor at the award. The picture was also noticed at the BAFTAs, where it also received most of the main nominations, and Spacey won the award as the Best Actor in the lead role. But with the passage of time, the attitude towards the film changed a lot because the topics raised in it began to look too trivial. In 2005, Premiere Magazine even included him in their list of the 20 most overrated movies of all time. Of course, the scandal with Kevin Spacey played a big role in the deterioration of the picture's reputation. In the same 1999, the actor released a little-noticed business comedy, The Big Kahuna, which he produced himself. Besides him, the main roles in the film were played by Danny DeVito and Peter Facinelli. The picture received good reviews from critics, but was not successful at the box office. At this time, Spacey successfully returned to the theater, where he played in the Broadway and London productions of The Iceman Cometh. For his role in the London production, Kevin received the Laurence Olivier Award. In addition, in 1999, Spacey received his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. After such a successful period, Spacey slowed down a bit, appearing in less successful projects in following years, although this did not prevent him from receiving another BAFTA nomination as the Best Actor for his role in The Shipping News. The picture tells about an emotionally traumatized man who, after the death of his unfaithful wife and his parents, moves with his daughter to the homeland of his ancestors in order to start his life over. This period also marks a very important event for Kevin. In 2003, he was appointed artistic director of the Old Vic Theatre, one of the oldest theatres in London. This meant a lot to Spacey because he fell in love with the theatre when he was a child, when he went there during the holidays. The actor later played on its stage, helped raise funds for the restoration, and eventually became one of the board members. I do not underestimate the level of commitment this project is going to require of me. It is something that I feel deeply about, have put over 2 years of thought towards, and frankly, is something I am utterly overjoyed at having reached a decision upon. The chairman of the theater, Sir Elton John, spoke highly of Kevin, noting, "Kevin's talent is exceptional, but what has truly inspired me is his passion for and commitment to this theater." And added, "I know that under his leadership, a permanent company at the theater will bring a totally new dynamic so that the Old Vic remains one of the most important theaters in the world." And the following year, in 2004, Spacey acted as an actor, director, screenwriter, and producer in the film Beyond the Sea. The biopic tells the story of singer and actor Bobby Darin, who was famous in the 50s and 60s. For Kevin, this film was a real brainchild that he'd been nurturing for many years. Such interest in the project was associated with the persona of Bobby Darin, whose songs Kevin listened to as a child. I was first introduced to him by my parents, who had a pretty extensive record collection. I'd sing along to Darin while Darin was singing along to Sinatra. I wanted to make this film because he's largely been forgotten. He'd been following this project since the 80s when he learned that a film about Darin was going to be made in Hollywood. For a long time after that, Spacey watched the project, which did not develop in any way for a very long time. Only at the beginning of 2000, Kevin bought the rights to the screenplay from the Warner Bros. Studio and started preparing for shooting. Preparations took several years as Spacey struggled to find financing. Paramount Pictures was interested in the film, but when bosses learned that Spacey wanted to play Darin himself, the deal fell through. The studio believed that Kevin was already too old for the role and wanted to take Leonardo DiCaprio instead. In the end, Spacey managed to find investors in Germany and England, and part of the budget was provided by his own production company, Trigger Street Productions, which he founded back in 1997. Kevin also waived fees for his work as an actor, director, and co-writer to reduce the burden on the budget. The willingness to make such concessions was not at all surprising because Spacey's mother wanted him to make this film, and Kevin was eager to please her. At that time, she was seriously ill, and in 2003, shortly before the start of filming, she died of brain cancer. I made the movie for all mothers, but especially for my mother. She introduced me to Bobby Darin. When she got very ill in 2002, I stopped everything and took care of her. We constantly played Bobby Darin records, and I'd let her listen to the tracks I was recording. I'm glad she passed, knowing this was the movie I was going to make. In preparation for the role, the actor studied vocals with Roger Kellaway, who worked with Darin. He also maintained a close relationship with Bobby's family, wanting to play his character as close as possible to how he was in life. Beyond the Sea received mixed reviews, with critics bashing it rather than praising it. It failed at the box office, unable to gross even half of its $25 million budget, but Spacey was nominated for his role at the Golden Globe Awards as the Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical. After becoming artistic director of the Old Vic Theatre, Kevin returned to the theatrical stage. For example, he performed the role of Richard II in the production of the same name. During this period, he tried to pay more attention to the theater, acting less in movies, and most of the films in which he worked during those years turned out to be unsuccessful. For example, the 2005 film Edison, which Spacey called a bad work. In 2007, he appeared in a small role in the Christmas comedy Fred Claus. This film did not meet its budget at the box office and was poorly evaluated by critics. Brian Lowry of Variety magazine described it as a follower of bad movies that are so tone-deaf and disagreeable as to have completely worn out their welcome by the time that gush of last act warmth arrives. The picture Telstar, the Joe Meeks story of 2008, which critics noted is raw, fatalistic, and somewhat crudely put together, went unnoticed. Failures also include the black comedy Shrink, which received a 27% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and the 2010 comedy drama Father of Invention, about which The Hollywood Reporter wrote, "Comedies don't get much more unfunny than Father of Invention, a lame and somewhat preachy comic take on a father trying to get back into his daughter's good graces." Another black comedy, The Men Who Stare at Goats, did well at the box office, but had mixed reviews from critics who noted that it was a mostly entertaining, farcical glimpse of men at war. Some may find its satire and dark humor less than edgy. Among the exceptions in this period is the picture about the legendary superhero Superman Returns, which appeared on the screens in 2006. In it, Spacey once again returned to his role as a villain, playing Lex Luthor. The role was written specifically for Kevin because the film director, the actor's old friend Bryan Singer, wanted to see only Spacey in it. Understanding Kevin's workload in the theater, Singer offered him a convenient shooting schedule that allowed the actor to prepare for productions without problems, which got Spacey's attention, who noted, "The huge attraction for me was the chance to work with Bryan again. Lex Luthor is a wonderful role." The film turned out to be a commercial success, liked by both the audience and critics. Spacey's acting was again noted as very high quality. The robbery drama 21, released in 2008, also grossed a good box office. It grossed almost $160 million against a budget of $35 million. But the critics did not like it too much. They noted that 21 could have been a fascinating study had it not supplanted the true story on which it is based with mundane melodrama. Also during this period, Spacey appears in Recount, a fairly successful TV movie in the genre of political drama, which tells about the recount of votes in the state of Florida in the 2000 presidential election. The audience liked the picture. On IMDb, it has a rating of 7.3 based on 13,000 ratings. For this work, Kevin again was nominated for several awards, including Emmy Awards and Golden Globe Awards. In 2009, Spacey appeared as a voice actor, voicing the robot Gertie in Duncan Jones' directorial debut, the sci-fi film Moon, starring Sam Rockwell. The picture was well received by critics who gave it a 90% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It was also nominated for BAFTA as the Best British Film. And the following year, Spacey received another Golden Globe nomination for the movie Casino Jack. It tells the biography of a participant in many corruption scandals, businessman Jack Abramoff, whose role was played by Kevin. Critics met this movie rather coolly, but positively noted Spacey, who, quote, turns in one of his stronger performances. Spacey mentioned that the film director George Hickenlooper wrote about his desire to cast him in the role on his Facebook page. As a result, after some time, they met in London and talked about the film. It was his enthusiasm and his understanding of the issues and our shared love of politics and his determination to do something that would be entertaining and not dull, and to be able to work with this man who I think made the definitive behind-the-scenes documentary about filmmaking in Hearts of Darkness. All that combined to make me want to do this movie. The following year, the actor starred in the drama Margin Call, which told the story of one of the banks on Wall Street in the first 24 hours after the beginning of the financial crisis of 2007 to 2008. The film was well received by critics, and its director and screenwriter J.C. Shandor, for whom this work became the debut, was nominated for an Oscar for the screenplay. Roger Ebert praised both the film's cast and the actor's performance, noting that they, quote, can make financial talk into compelling dialogue. He also expressed admiration for Spacey's performance, noting that the actor, quote, projects incisive intelligence in his very manner. After years of roller coasters in Spacey's professional career, he finally fired up again, starring in House of Cards, which launched on Netflix in 2013. The series was a political thriller and told the story of amoral and cynical politician Frank Underwood, played by Kevin Spacey. From the very beginning, the project was innovative and changed the rules of the television game. It became the first series shot by the Netflix studio. The series development at the beginning took place without being tied to the streaming service. The studio Media Rights Capital, which originally owned the rights to the series, was looking for a channel that would take up the filming of the project, turning to HBO, AMC, and Showtime. But everyone was overtaken by Netflix, which at that time was just hoping to launch its own product. The streaming platform offered the highest price and bought the rights to the series. This came as a surprise because previously Netflix was not engaged in filming series and now not only bought the rights, but also committed to filming 2 full seasons of House of Cards, that is, 26 episodes. Later, David Fincher, who directed the first 2 seasons of the show, said about it, "We took it around to a lot of networks and they all loved it and they all were interested, but nobody wanted to commit to 13 episodes, so we were kind of dead in the water. In my infinite hubris, I was, why not? If we're going to do it, you may as well do 13, because it's so much work. It's 100 hours a week to do a shit job." As mentioned by Spacey, who in addition to the main role was also an executive producer of the series, all the channels were interested in the project, but they all wanted to see the pilot series first, and only Netflix agreed to buy the series right away. It was also new that this series became one of the first projects that released all episodes of the season at the same time. The showrunner of the first 4 seasons of the project, Beau Willimon, emphasized, "Streaming is the future. TV will not be TV in 5 years from now. Everyone will be streaming." Spacey also agreed with this, quote, "This is a really new perspective, to drop them all at once, but I think that's how we watch TV now." Fun fact, Spacey, who was a fan of Woody Allen and always wanted to be in his movie, wanting to catch the eye of the director, decided to send him a Netflix subscription to watch House of Cards. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, he described the situation as follows. "So, I introduced myself and sent him a Netflix subscription and said, 'I don't know if you've seen my work, but you might want to watch this series.' He wrote me back a warm and wonderful letter and thanked me for the Netflix. He said he'd seen me play lots of different roles and said he absolutely would consider me in a film." In preparation for the roles, Spacey spoke with Kevin McCarthy, a politician and member of the Republican Party. This helped him better understand how to play a political figure. Although Kevin cannot be considered a complete novice in politics, according to him, since the time when he studied at school, he participated in supporting candidates from the Democratic Party in the presidential elections. He even worked on John B. Anderson's independent bid for the 1980 presidential election. Anderson was then ranked 3rd after Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter. "I started working on my first presidential campaign when Jimmy Carter ran for president in 1976, and I was in high school. And over the course of many years, I worked for other candidates in various races and ultimately became very close with former President Clinton." Yes, Spacey is a good friend of the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton. They met back in the days when Clinton was governor of Arkansas. It happened during an event organized to celebrate the election of Hillary Clinton to the U.S. Senate. Kevin was one of the few who supported Bill during the scandal with Monica Lewinsky. He also organized a special screening of The Iceman Cometh for the Clintons, and their daughter, Chelsea Clinton, attended the premiere of Spacey's film, The Shipping News. The actor also accompanied Clinton on his trip to several African countries to raise awareness of AIDS on the African continent. Spacey later recalled that Clinton even spoke on the phone with his mother several times. According to him, he received a call from the president one morning in which Clinton asked Kevin if his mother lived in Seattle, and when he received an affirmative answer, he said that he wanted to invite her to his event. So then he called my mother and she hung up on him because she didn't believe that it was really him. She thought it was me doing him, I guess. I'm not sure. He had to call back a couple of times before she finally believed it, and then he had her come out to this breakfast that he was doing, and then she watched him give a speech, and it meant an enormous amount to her. So, Spacey's been involved in the political life of his country since his youth, and for him, the role of Frank Underwood was not only interesting, but also natural. His acting was really very convincing, making the audience actually believe what was happening on screen.
And I'm telling you, 97% of the maybe hundreds of people that we saw during the course of the day called me Mr. President.
Really?
we were like, Mr. President, Mr. President. Mr. President.
Something mental happening
like,
for them.
Wow, that's sort of interesting. It makes me think that I could run even without a platform, although Netflix is a pretty big platform.
After its release, the series became a real hit, receiving great love from the audience. Critics also admired it, most of all noting Spacey's excellent performance. Although the ratings varied slightly from season to season, from slightly better to slightly worse and vice versa, overall the series was rated fairly evenly and in a positive direction. During its existence, the show received several dozen nominations for the Emmy Award. Spacey alone had as many as 10 such nominations as the Best Actor in a Leading Role in a Series. It was the first project released by the streaming service to receive such major awards. Everything went wrong in 2017, when Kevin Spacey was accused of sexual harassment. After that, Netflix terminated the contract with the actor, so season 6 was filmed without him. All this did not go in favor of the series. The critics' ratings dropped quite a lot. Many were disappointed by the absence of Spacey. In addition, the audience ratings of the show also fell. The series was closed after that season. Simultaneously with the series, Spacey continued acting in movies, but his films during this period again did not have much success. Among them, only the action film Baby Driver, directed by Edgar Wright and starring Ansel Elgort, stood out. The film did well at the box office, earning nearly $227 million on a budget of $34 million. It also received good reviews from critics. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a rating of 92%, based on 395 reviews. This was reinforced by entering the awards season. The film received 3 Oscar nominations and was also nominated for BAFTA and the Golden Globe. In 2015, Spacey stepped down as artistic director of the Old Vic. I had done what I set out to do, and I wanted to be challenged on a different level. Then, lo and behold, the Old Vic fell into my lap. He said, recalling that period, quote, "The idea of returning to the theater and running a company was so engaging and exciting that I never saw it as walking away from something. I saw it as walking towards something. I know in my heart that if I hadn't gone to London, hadn't done a play or two every year, hadn't worked with Trevor Nunn, Matthew Warchus, and Howard Davies, I would never have been ready for a role like Frank Underwood in House of Cards. The decade at the Old Vic made me a better actor." The contribution to the revival of the Old Vic Theatre made by Spacey was appreciated in Britain at the highest level. For him, Kevin was awarded the title of Commander of the Order of the British Empire. It was extremely honorable because the actor was not British, and such an award was given to foreigners only for exceptional services to Great Britain. So, at almost 60 years old, Spacey could be satisfied with life and career. He was a recognized master in cinema and theater, respected by colleagues and viewers, was given notable awards, and engaged in his favorite business. But all this was destroyed at one point, when the actor Anthony Rapp accused Spacey of sexual harassment. But before we dive into the story of the scandal that almost ended the career and harmed life of Kevin Spacey, we suggest you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell button to receive timely notifications about the release of new videos on the actors and more. Hurry up and subscribe, and we will continue. It all started on October 29, 2017, when an interview with Anthony Rapp appeared. In it, the actor said that Spacey tried to make sexual contact with him during a party to which Kevin invited him. It happened in 1986 when Rapp was only 14 years old and Spacey was 26. According to Anthony, Spacey appeared to be very drunk at the time. He took the teenager in his arms, put him in bed, and lay on top of him. Rapp managed to escape before the situation became even more dangerous. After that, he buried this story in the depths of his memory for a long time, but Spacey's rapidly growing career did not allow him to forget it forever. Rapp saw him in several popular films, which again stirred unpleasant memories. He shared the story with some of his friends, and later in 2001 even told it in an interview with the LGBT magazine The Advocate, but Spacey's name was removed from the final version of the article. This happened due to the unwillingness of the magazine to disclose the sexual orientation of a person who was still, quote, in the closet at that time. Spacey at that time really strongly denied any rumors that he was gay. Another reason to hide Kevin's name was the fact that at that time no one considered his actions to be extraordinary, and even more so, they did not consider them as punishable under the criminal law. Rapp said that at the time he even talked to a lawyer about it who told him that there was nothing in this case that could be brought to court. It didn't feel like a bombshell in the way it would now. It really was a different time. I mean, it was upsetting and provocative, but it wasn't something you felt like you needed to do something about, you know? Which is one good thing about the way the culture's changed. Dennis Hensley, who was freelancing at The Advocate at the time and interviewed Rapp in the same way, mentioned the story. But a decade and a half later, everything changed. After the Harvey Weinstein scandal and the emergent Me Too movement, a large number of people began to share their stories of sexual harassment. Seeing this, Anthony Rapp also decided to speak out. Such an accusation had to be responded to, which Spacey did, posting a tweet on Twitter in which he said he was shocked by the story, which he did not remember at all, and apologized to Rapp for his inappropriate behavior. In addition, Kevin decided to take advantage of the situation to come out as gay. He admitted that throughout his life he had sexual and romantic relationships with men. His confession finally confirmed what had been discussed in the press for a long time. Back in 1997, an article in Esquire magazine suggested that Spacey was gay. This assumption was not surprising, because in all the years when Kevin was under the sights of the cameras of journalists and paparazzi, he was never seen in a romantic relationship with anyone. The only details that were known about his private life were that he was the owner of 2 dogs that he adopted from a shelter. Spacey has been very careful about his personal life, saying that this is his private territory into which he does not intend to let the public in. Therefore, he reacted accordingly to that article, completely denying these words. Then there were rumors that Kevin had been in a relationship since 1992 with script supervisor Diane Dreyer, who was present with him at the Oscars in 2000, when Spacey won as Best Actor. He also mentioned her in his speech.
I'm stunned and I'm a bit speechless. And Diane, thank you for teaching me about caring about the right things. And I love you. And Mother, I don't care what they say about bringing you to award shows. I will always bring you to award shows because I'm proud of you and I love you. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Reluctance to reveal one's sexual orientation to the public was not surprising. After Kevin began to gain popularity in the theater, the agent assured him that he should keep quiet about his preferences because it could hinder his career. Back then, it was the 80s when homosexuality was still widely condemned, even in the United States. Speaking openly about being gay, Spacey was hindered not only by the fear of public condemnation, but also by his father's upbringing and attitude towards the topic. According to Kevin, he believed that this should never be told to anyone. I grew up in a situation as a child where I wasn't comfortable talking about these things. My father used to yell at me about the idea I might be gay because I was interested in the theater. My father used to scream at me, "Don't be a F word." That is very derogatory to the gay community. It was very disturbing for me because I was beginning to discover my own sexuality. I think I had a degree of shame. Because of this, it was very difficult for Spacey to accept himself, even in adulthood when he already had experience with men. Only in the 90s, when Kevin was already in his 30s, he finally managed to admit his homosexuality, although he continued to hide it from the public. And Randy Fowler recalled that he had never doubted that his brother was gay. Kevin never had a girlfriend. Of course I knew he was gay. We all did. I never saw him with any girls. The only people he loved as a kid were male stars like Frank Sinatra and Christopher Walken. And now, after so many years of hiding his personal life and denying his orientation, he finally decided to open up, but it was done at a not too good time, for which Spacey was criticized by many. For example, actors Sue Perkins and Zachary Quinto. Linda Riley, publisher of Diva, the British magazine for lesbians, emphasized, quote, "I find this whole statement quite manipulative, if I'm honest. He's tried to acknowledge what he's done, but used the fact that he's gay as subterfuge." After the first confession from Anthony Rapp, accusations from other people rolled on Spacey in a huge wave. Actor Harry Dreyfuss said that when he was 18 years old, he attended a party in a London apartment where Kevin approached him and touched his genitals. Director and actor Tony Montana, as well as actor Roberto Cavazos, who worked with Spacey at the Old Vic Theater, accused him of harassment. On his Facebook page, he described, quote, "a couple of nasty encounters with Spacey," in which he lured Cavazos to a champagne picnic under the pretense of a business conversation. He also noted, quote, "There are many of us with a Kevin Spacey story. It seems the only requirement was to be a male under the age of 30 for Mr. Spacey to feel free to touch us." Following these claims, the theater conducted its own investigation and received 20 claims, 16 of which came from former employees, all of whom were men. These accusations included various forms of inappropriate behavior, from actions that made people uncomfortable to inappropriate sexual touching. One of the victims said that Spacey tried to court him, promising to introduce him to Hollywood stars, and also harassed and touched him indecently. After that, the actor was also sued. Spacey was accused of sexual contact without mutual consent with an unnamed massage therapist and harassment of an 18-year-old young man, the son of journalist Heather Unruh. Anthony Rapp also sued Spacey in 2020. In total, in the US, Kevin was presented with 3 charges, and in the UK, he received lawsuits from 3 plaintiffs on 4 charges, to which 7 more charges were later added. Among the accusations, the most serious were the charges of coercion into sexual contact without consent. In one of the clauses, it was about actions without penetration, and in the second, with penetration. These accusations could have cost the actor his freedom. This one involved a 4th man who alleged that he woke up at Spacey's London apartment and found the actor having sex with him, believing he may have been rendered unconscious somehow by the actor. Spacey described the encounter as consensual and provided telephone records that contradicted the alleged victim's account. The scandal, of course, brought huge damage to Spacey's reputation. Immediately after the accusation by Anthony Rapp, the International Academy of Television Arts and Sciences refused to present Kevin with a special Emmy Award. His publicist, Stacey Wolf, and creative artists agency cut ties with him. His cooperation with Netflix also ended. He was removed from the series and removed from the position of executive producer. Also in 2020, he was ordered to pay $31 million in compensation to MRC, which produced House of Cards. The argument was the actor's violation of the company's sexual harassment policy. Spacey appealed the decision, but it was denied. Also, because of the scandal, the actor had to close the Kevin Spacey Foundation, his own foundation that helped young people study the arts, especially theater, by providing special grants to organizations and individuals. At the time of its closure, the fund had been operating for 10 years. It also had a huge impact on Spacey's career. Netflix's Gore, starring Kevin, has been canceled. At that time, the picture was already completely shot. Also, the scenes with Spacey were completely removed from the already finished film All the Money in the World. Kevin was replaced by Christopher Plummer, with whom all these scenes were reshot. In 2018, the last film with Kevin Spacey, Billionaire Boys Club, was released at that time. Because of the scandal, it completely failed at the box office, grossing only $618 in the first weekend in 11 cinemas. Spacey defended himself, denying all other charges after Rapp. Before Christmas 2018, on December 24th, he published a video on his YouTube page called Let Me Be Frank, in which he appeared as his character Frank Underwood. In it, he denied the accusations against him, although the media called the video creepy and nauseating. It has been viewed 13 million times.
Despite all the poppycock, the animosity, the headlines, the impeachment without a trial, despite everything, despite even my own death, I feel surprisingly good. And my confidence grows each day that soon enough you will know the full truth. Well, wait a minute. Now that I think of it, you never actually saw me die, did you?
The idea to make this video came to Spacey from Evan Lowenstein, his manager and close friend whom he had known for many years. He was by Kevin's side throughout the scandal, and at one point, seeing that Spacey was suffering greatly from not being able to act, persuaded him to make a Christmas video. Lowenstein also wrote the script for it, leaving hidden messages in it for supporters. This was an opportunity for him to communicate in a way that couldn't be used against him in the court of law because he was acting. He explained later. The video received a warm response from Spacey's supporters, who said they thought Netflix's behavior was unfair and urged Kevin to be strong and keep fighting. After that, Spacey, twice more, before Christmas 2019 and 2020, published similar videos on the channel, in the last of which he expressed support for people who were in a difficult life situation and even had thoughts of taking their own lives. He also placed phone numbers for support in the video with an appeal to call if anyone needed it. In addition, the actor tried to draw attention to himself quite unconventionally. In 2019, he was spotted on the streets of Rome where he read poems. It was Kevin's first public appearance after the accusations, and he read Gabriele Tenti's poem Boxer in front of the Greek statue Boxer at Rest, which he wrote under the impression of the scandal surrounding the personality of the artist. The poem tells about a tortured fighter who was used for show business and then left bleeding to die.
What is that you're saying? Perhaps you are right. The more you are wounded, the greater you are. And the more empty you are. They used me for their entertainment, fed on shoddy stuff. Life was over in a moment.
Poet Tenti said he was honored to have the actor read his poem, tweeting, "What a great night. Everyone was so happy to celebrate the art. I was very honored that Kevin Spacey read my poems. Rome loves you. A picture is worth 1,000 words." And a year later, the actor appeared on the Bits and Pretzels podcast where he talked about how difficult it was for him to be unemployed at the time, comparing his circumstances with the difficulties of people who lost their jobs due to COVID. I don't often like to tell people that I can understand their situation because I think that undermines the experience that they have, which is their own unique and very personal experience, Spacey said. But in this case, I feel like I can understand what it's like to have your world suddenly stop. And although we may have found ourselves in similar situations, albeit for different reasons and circumstances, I still believe that some of the emotional difficulties are largely the same. All these years, legal proceedings continued, during which Spacey was gradually removed from the charges. Anthony Rapp's lawsuit was dismissed because he failed to properly describe the apartment where the harassment incident took place. Charges in the journalist's son's lawsuit were also dropped after the plaintiffs refused to turn over the victim's phone, which Spacey's lawyers insisted could contain messages that proved their client's innocence. And the case of sexual contact without mutual consent was closed due to the death of the unnamed massage therapist who acted as the victim and plaintiff. The trials in the UK took longer. Spacey has repeatedly denied any allegations of harassment, accusing the male plaintiffs of defaming him for money. On the counts of sexual assault, he insisted that all contacts took place with the full consent of both parties. In the end, the jury returned a verdict that acquitted Kevin Spacey of all charges. It happened on July 26, 2023, exactly on the actor's birthday. After the final decision was announced, Spacey addressed the court. I imagine that many of you can understand that there's a lot for me to process after what has just happened today. But I would like to say that I'm enormously grateful to the jury for having taken all the time to examine all of the evidence and all of the facts carefully before they reached their decision, and I am humbled by the outcome today. After the charges were dropped, it was finally time for Spacey to return to his favorite thing, acting. Even during the court proceedings, he said that even after the scandal, some people in Hollywood wanted to work with him, but did not dare to invite him because they were afraid that they could also be canceled for this. Although he was able to return to the cinema even before all charges were dropped. With this, he was very warmly received in Italy, where he starred in the film directed by Franco Nero, The Man Who Drew God. He also received the Stella dell'Amore Award from Turin's National Museum of Cinema for outstanding achievements in cinema. In Italy, the actor was supported by fans who waited for him in the hotel where he lived. The media have done their best to turn me into a monster, but from the people, I've seen nothing but affection. Spacey later commented on this situation. After several years of silence, Spacey gave an interview to the Italian newspaper, Tu Messaggero, in which he expressed his immense gratitude to Franco Nero for taking the risk of inviting him into his film at a time when everyone else was afraid to do so. In the interview, Spacey also mentioned that he was very excited to join the cast and help tell Nero's story. According to him, the director built a creative atmosphere on the set and the actors and crew received him wonderfully. I felt valued and appreciated, and I've had the pleasure of making friends like Robert Davi, a wonderful actor and a very funny man. Moreover, Kevin starred in the Croatian documentary Once Upon a Time in Croatia and the thriller Peter 5'8". He also had a voiceover role in the British indie thriller Control. Gene Falaise, who directed this film, noted that he had no doubts about inviting Spacey to his project. The only people that know everything are the ones that were in the courtroom, and they decided he was not guilty. These people that are saying, if they're saying, that we're whitewashing him or enabling him to come back, what facts have they got to contradict the jury? I don't regret casting Kevin, and I would do it all over again. Falaise has always been a fan of Spacey and really wanted to cast him in his film. When he offered him cooperation, Kevin initially refused, but when Falaise tried again, noting that the film was written specifically for Spacey and that the actor would not have to appear on screen, he agreed. But in the end, the charges were dropped, and Spacey was able to breathe a sigh of relief. After all, it gave him not only the opportunity to regain his good name and prove his innocence, but also allowed him to return to what he never imagined himself doing without, acting in movies. As he admitted, this was the most difficult for him because while the trial was going on, he was very afraid that he would never be able to work in the cinema and theater again. According to an investigation by Los Angeles Magazine, the actor's return to the big screen is currently in doubt. Hell no, one major studio executive texted back after being asked whether they'd ever consider casting Spacey. That seemed to be the widespread sentiment among the industry folks who spoke on condition of anonymity. I think he'll continue to work overseas outside of the studio system, but I can't imagine he's going to be in a Marvel movie anytime soon, said one longtime talent manager. He understands that he will hardly be able to rehabilitate his reputation in the eyes of the mass media, But more important for him is the opinion of the directors and producers who have to decide his fate by inviting, or not inviting, into their projects. So now we just have to wait and see if Hollywood wants to bring Kevin Spacey back into the spotlight. He is worth it with his level of talent, but will the public be able to put aside memories of the scandal and believe that he was indeed wrongly accused? We'll find out in the near future. And here we leave Kevin Spacey and suggest you click on the icons that appeared on the screen to watch other interesting videos about your favorite stars. And don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. It was the Biographer channel. Till next time.